What's going on, everybody? Cleepus Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be giving you my first impressions of the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2023. If you end up wanting to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about it, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So to start off, let's take a look at the box. So typical 2023 Motorola box, eco-friendly packaging, pretty cool. Not really a whole lot inside, but we do have our typical quick start guide, SIM card removal tool, USB-C cable, and a 10-watt wall adapter. So in general, pretty basic. Definitely nice to get a wall adapter here because at this point in 2023, there are lots of phones that don't come with one at all, and it's definitely a nice thing to have. But moving on to the phone itself, with the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023, we're getting a 6.6-inch 120Hz IPS LCD display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 399, and a 20:9 aspect ratio. So definitely a great display here. I really have no complaints. Things do look decently bright, the colors look nice. The 1080p resolution gives us a nice sharp image. So if you're doing stuff like watching videos, for example, where the overall image quality is a bit more important, then this phone will definitely be a good choice. And compared to the Moto G Stylus 4G 2023, that phone for some reason only has a 720p display. So with this phone, I am glad to see we are getting 1080p here. Really the only thing that I feel like could be a little better is that maybe instead of an IPS LCD, if they gave it an OLED or an AMOLED instead. But considering this phone is going for around $399 factory unlocked, and even less when it's on sale, overall, I am happy with the display we're getting here. Now for storage, with the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023, we're getting 256GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion. Now, keep in mind this phone in my hand is factory unlocked, and if you get it through a carrier, the storage could be different. But again, the phone in my hand does have 256GB, and for a mid-range phone, this is definitely a good amount of storage. For the average user, you're most likely not going to fill this up, and even if you are doing a lot with your phone, maybe you're recording a bunch of longer videos, for example, in that case, the microSD card expansion will definitely help with that too. For security features, the Moto G Stylus 5G does have face unlock and a fingerprint scanner right here on the power key, so definitely a great spot for a fingerprint scanner, but let's give it a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. So as you can see, no issues at all. Now taking a look at the camera setup here, with the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023, up front, we got a real nice looking hole punch design for the selfie camera. This camera is 16 megapixels. Then on the back, we got a dual camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera and an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera that also doubles as a macro camera. So definitely a great camera setup here. I see they're doing the same thing Motorola did last year, combining the ultra wide camera and macro camera. And not that this really matters a whole lot, but I think Motorola is the only one who really does that, so definitely cool. But in general, if you're looking for a camera that has a good variety of features, then considering this phone has both an ultra-wide camera and a macro camera, technically, you won't be disappointed here. And in addition to this phone can actually record 4K videos in the rear camera. Only 1080p in the front, but considering at this point in 2023, there are really not that many mid-range phones that can record 4K videos. I am glad to see this phone can. Now when it comes to photo quality, considering this is a first impressions video, I haven't actually used the camera yet, but with a 50 megapixel camera, and just going off of what I saw with the Moto G Stylus 4G 2023, I am expecting real good photo quality here. So in general, if you're looking for a mid-range 5G phone that has a great camera, I do think this phone is definitely worth considering. For the RAM and processor, with the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 6 Gen 1 processor. So this is actually a pretty new processor, and in my limited experience so far, the performance on this phone has been pretty good. For stuff like web browsing, social media, watching videos, listening to music, and some more light, less advanced mobile gaming, things on this phone have run really well. Now, of course, if you're coming from a older, higher end device, then in that case you're probably used to a much higher level of performance, and in that case coming to a phone like this might feel like a bit of a downgrade. So if you are in that situation, definitely keep in mind, even if you have like an old Samsung Galaxy S9 or S10 for example, this phone is not going to feel like an upgrade. But for a mid-range phone, I do think this phone is still definitely fast for what it is, and for most people looking for a mid-range phone like this, it will get the job done just fine. Now I ran a benchmark test on this phone using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone, and then comparing your results to these, and that's going to give you a better idea of whether or not this phone will be a performance upgrade for you, because again, depending on what you're coming from, it may or may not be. But again, in general, if you're looking for a decently fast 5G phone in this price range, I would say overall this is definitely one of the better options. For For the battery, with the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery that supports 20 watt fast charging, so definitely a great battery here. But keep in mind, despite this phone actually supporting 20 watt fast charging, again, it only comes with a 10 watt wall adapter, which granted, I can't really complain too much considering that Samsungs, for example, don't even come with any wall adapter, and that is a pretty common thing at this point in 2023. But if you do want to take full advantage of the fast charging, you will have to actually get a 20 watt charger or more. But once you do have one, the charging speed on this phone is definitely decent. Maybe not the best you can possibly get, but for most people it will get the job done. And then of course with a 5000 mAh battery, despite not really being that unique anymore, from this phone you can expect great battery life. So if you are looking for something that's really gonna last throughout the day even if you have to use it a lot, the Moto G Stylus 5G will be a great choice. Now for the software, this phone does have Android 13, and seeing how Motorola's updates have gone in the past, at some point after Android 14 comes out, I am expecting it to eventually get the update. But keep in mind, Motorola doesn't exactly have the most consistent, reliable software support. So if you are someone who likes to keep your phone for maybe like 4 years or so, and you want to make sure you have the latest updates the whole time, then this phone might not be terrible, but at the same time there are better options out there, like Samsung or Google for example. So if you are in that kind of situation, then you might want to rethink getting a phone like this. But in general, compared to the average phone out there, when it comes to software and software support, Motorola is at least decent, and over the past couple years they have been getting better. And again, this phone does have Android 13, which of course, that is the latest version of Android right now, so not too bad here. As far as other features go, this phone does have NFC, so if you like to use tap and pay, you can actually use it with this phone, which this is the only Moto G phone in 2023 that actually does have NFC. So if the feature is important to you, definitely keep this in mind. In addition to this, as the name implies, the Moto G Stylus does of course have a stylus, and in my experience it does work pretty well. I feel like that's one good thing about Moto G Stylus phones. Every time they drop a new one, the stylus gets a little bit better. Now, keep in mind, compared to like the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, the stylus is not nearly that good, but I mean this is like a $400 phone at most compared to something that's like $1400, so that is to be expected. But if you are just looking for something to take handwritten notes and navigate through your display and maybe play game or something like that, the stylus here will definitely get the job done. But in conclusion, my general first impressions of the Motorola Moto G Stylus 5G 2023. Now, from what I've seen so far, I really don't have any complaints about this phone. Sure, there are some things that aren't exactly the best, like, again, the software support, even just knowing Motorola, I honestly doubt it's gonna get anything beyond Android 14. It also has an IPS LCD and not like an AMOLED like some of the mid-range Samsung Galaxy A-series phones. Despite being able to record 4K videos in the rear camera, it can't in the front. And I'm sure as I use it more, there are gonna be a couple little random quirks here and there that could be better, but honestly, for a $400 mid-range phone, I feel like this phone is really as good as you could expect. One thing I did just think of is that with this phone compared to its predecessor, the Moto G Stylus 5G 2022, at 6.6 inches versus 6.8 with the 2022 model, it is a little bit smaller, and when you have a phone that has a stylus, that might not be the best outcome. But in general, I feel like the difference is really not huge. And again, overall, if you're looking for an affordable 5G phone that has a really nice display, plenty of storage, a nice camera setup, a fast processor, a really good battery, a stylus, and features like NFC, the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023 is definitely worth considering. Now, once again, if you end up wanting to learn more about this phone, I will be making plenty of videos about it in the future, so definitely stay tuned for that, and check out the description for the latest info on pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories too. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipus Tech on Twitter and Instagram, and as always, I will see you in the next video.